Okay guys, when we talk about the perfect swing, the most important part of it is to figure out whether you are someone who makes contact very low, right where you need to, or a little bit above where you feel comfortable with the ball, okay? So I'm gonna start to bring up a couple of concepts that maybe you've never thought about, okay? But they're gonna make a lot of sense to you, okay? I see a lot of recreational players play tennis, and the number one mistake that they all make is they all hit the ball in a less than optimal location. If you think about it, the place where you're most comfortable is usually at the hip. Okay, that's our center of gravity, that's where we feel great, that's where everything is balanced, and that's where we really have the most amount of power that we can generate. So it's very important that as you start to take this game on, that you make contact at your hip as often as you can. Okay, so the first concept that I'm going to talk about is, are you a knee player, a hip player, or a shoulder player? Okay, so the way that you would notice that is start to pay attention to where you make contact. I see a lot of players actually either running back or running forward and making contact actually at their shoelace, which is, you know, the worst place where you can make contact because everything is in your way. The net is going to be at about your hip height. Okay, so you want to make sure that the net becomes irrelevant to the game. And the way that you make the net be irrelevant to the game is by making sure that every point of contact happens higher than the net, so that the net is minimized. Okay? Anytime you start to make contact below your kneecap, the net is at its pinnacle. So it's going to be in your way all the way. And then you have to make sure that you have enough stop spin to get the ball to curve and stay in the court. So I would really recommend that you start to really move your point of contact from your shoelace, if you're one of those players, to your hip. Okay? Some players actually make contact at the knee. Not so bad, okay? But you can certainly improve by raising it to your hip. Some of you may say, well, what happens when somebody hits a slice shot? Well, the key here and the clue is to make sure that you lower your hip to the contact with that ball, meaning that your ball is still going to be at your hip, okay? But you're going to have to make the effort to bring your hip down to the point of contact, okay? This is where the game gets really, really challenging for a lot of players because it requires that you lower and raise your hip, okay? So, again, I want you guys to go out there and test yourselves. Where do you mostly make contact? Lower than your hip or higher than your hip? Now let's talk about advanced players. Advanced players obviously have the full range, okay? And the full range means that they're very comfortable also making contact at their shoulder. The reason why this is the preferred location now for all professional players is because they play with a lot of topspin, meaning that the ball is going to bounce fairly high with a lot of power, a lot of spin, a lot of rotation, and they're going to mostly be making contact up here, which is great, because as they're hitting the ball and striking it on the rise, this is ideal because they're able to really bring the ball down with a lot of racket head acceleration. The net is never in their way, so they never have to worry about it, and they're able to generate a lot of power, okay? So to me, the ideal location for the perfect swing is always going to be between your hip and your shoulder, okay? So as we're working with the sweet spotter, we're going to concentrate on this nice location that goes from here to here. This is also shot specific and side specific. So some of you may be very comfortable and have a full range on the forehand side, and then on the backhand side, maybe you don't have the full range, okay? If you think about it, even Federer does not have the full range. He loses a little bit of power when you start to go in the upper register, okay? But all of them are very comfortable either with the topspin or the slice from the hip to the shoulder. And of course, as you start to go lower, they always have an answer for it. But we're going to focus on you guys and make sure that you develop a game that is pretty solid from the hip to the shoulder.